who felt the small jar of resistance as the axe struck her skull, then moved on, splitting her head like a melon. A haze of red rose up before him, and he felt fragments of her brains splatter against his face. He opened his mouth and, finally, screamed. He was sitting straight up in bed, the sheets tangled around him, his body clammy with the same icy sweat he'd felt in the dream. Before him the image of his mother's shattered skull still hung in the darkness, then was washed away as the room filled with light. "Kevin?" he heard his wife ask, then felt her hand on his arm. "Kevin, what is it? Are you all right?" Kevin Devereaux shook off the last vestiges of the dream and got out of bed. Though the mid-July night was hot, he was shivering. He wrapped himself in a robe before he answered Anne, his voice hoarse. "It was a dream. I thought my mother was trying to kill me, but in the end, I killed her." He turned to face her. "I killed my mother." "But it was only a dream." Anne reached over and fluffed up his crumpled pillow, then tugged the sheet straight. "Come back to bed and forget it. We all have strange dreams, but they don't mean anything. Besides, the way you feel about your mother, I'm amazed you don't have that dream every night." Kevin tried to force a smile he didn't feel. "I did for a while. When I was a kid, I used to wake up with it all the time. They finally had to give me a private room at school because my roommate said I screamed so loud he couldn't sleep. But I haven't had it since I was 16 or 17. Anne patted the spot next to her on the bed. "Now come on. Whatever brought it on, it's all over with now, and you've got to get some sleep." But Kevin only shook his head and knotted the belt of the robe around his waist. "It was different this time. When I was little, I always dreamed Mother was trying to kill me, and I always woke up just before it happened, but this time it all changed. This time, right at the end, I was killing her, and I didn't wake up until she was dead." Anne's eyes met his, and the smile that had been playing tentatively at the corners of her mouth disappeared. "You're serious, aren't you? You really think it means something?" Kevin spread his hands helplessly. "I just have this feeling that maybe something's happened to her." He glanced at the clock, wondering if he ought to call his sister, then dismissed the idea. At 3:30 in the morning, all he would do was give her a good scare. But he knew he couldn't go back to sleep. Not yet. Not until he had thought about the dream, thought about what it might mean, figured out why, after all these years, it had come back to him. He leaned down and brushed Anne's lips with his. "Go back to sleep, honey. I'm gonna go down and raid the refrigerator." He switched off the lamp on Anne's bed table, slipped out the door, and moved silently down the hall past his children's rooms, then down the stairs. But instead of going to the kitchen, he went into the living room and settled himself into his favorite chair, a big leather wing chair just like the one in the library when he was growing up, just like the one his mother had never let him sit in. But he was 40 years old now, and his mother was nearly 80, and he should have forgotten about that chair and everything else a long time ago. And he thought he had, until tonight. Now he realized that he hadn't forgotten anything, and that the dream had indeed meant something. It meant that he still hated his mother as much as he ever had. He still wished she were dead. In her room, Helena Devereaux did not sleep. Instead, she lay still in her bed, willing her heart to keep beating smoothly, just as she had willed most things in her life to happen, according to her own choices. Until the last few months, her will had been sufficient, but she was nearing the end now. She could feel her strength slipping away from her, feel her grip on Ruby, her housekeeper, and her daughter, Marguerite, loosening, just as her grip on life was loosening too. Now, as she lay in the darkness of her room, she wondered which she hated most, the fact of dying or the fact of losing her control over events.